Welcome to Toy Business Unboxed, your gateway to the secrets of the toy industry. Here, Jason Shea, a toy entrepreneur and expert in the field.
Every product we develop is really inspired by some of the real life experience that we have with our son.
60% of all toys last year were sold on Amazon, which is incredible.
Be passionate about it because it's a road, it's a journey.
Like when you have an idea that you think is like gonna somewhat like change the world, make things better, I'd say go for it.
We'll guide you through the enchanting world of toy design, marketing, and manufacturing. Now let the unboxing begin.
Welcome back to another episode of Toy Business Unboxed. Today we have a guest. His name is also Jason, and he was a producer for over 20 years in both film and also commercial media, who have turned his passions in storytelling skill toward board games publishing. And through his studios at Mentha Design, he has brought players titles like Cantankerous Cats, Sock Life, and many other very interesting and fun games throughout his companies. Always a focus was creating meaningful and inclusive play. So thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks, Jason.
So first of all, if you don't mind sharing with our audience your journey so far, what inspired you to move from like working in films and industry to board game publishing? That's a very different industry, I assume.
That's a great question. It's a great place to start too. It's just basically a lifetime of game design, not just playing games, not just making games, but also constantly living in that headspace of mechanics and simulationist sort of ideas and how to create experiences, bringing things together, having large mechanical exercises, both in groups, by myself. I've always done that. And I've always gamified, even with my previous career, I've always gamified my workloads, my tasks to optimize performance, to embolden other people who are on the team or having a better experience. There's always been a game aspect to it. So even in like my dungeon mastering, especially, a buddy of mine, an editor I worked with for years, says, wow, it makes sense you're such a good dungeon master. You're so used to telling people what to do all the time. I'm like, no. That's not what it's about. It's not what it's all about. I'm not there to orchestrate or tell a story. I'm there to engage and creating experiences, even in a little tiny small box that you might sell on through crowdfunding or something, is the gateway that I've always been drawn to.
I see. And can you kind of go back to the history of the company and let's talk about the first game you ever designed, because you have designed many different games over the years as well.
I have. The original founder of Mentha Designs was a gentleman named Avon Gonzalez, who had helped me in various capacities deliver one of my own games. And it had very dissimilar skill sets. And at one point, we just felt that a synergy would be great. So I joined up with him in Mentha Designs, and we effectively relaunched early this year, maybe late last year.
Okay.
When I had full agency and interest to go completely full time into the board game industry. And we're still in a transition phase, I feel. But I jumped in with both feet. We got all of our games back on deck for the most part, or in the process of doing so. So creating that machinery was something I was very, very familiar with, and bringing the skills over from film and commercial into board game publishing seemed like a pretty organic thing. It's a difficult industry with a lot of moving parts. You often find yourself toiling alone, or at least divorced from large teams until you absolutely need them. So starting business, building up, running complex production machinery, and then wrapping it all out was something I've been very familiar with. So the board game lane seemed like both a logical place to go and also something that I'm very much interested in.
I see. Well, it sounds like there's a little bit of crossover between the industry as well. What would you say are some of the skill sets that you learned from the film industry that you feel like is also very relevant for the board game industry?
Well, the learning new things is one of the biggest kind of crossover sort of skill sets. Like in film and commercial production, you could be in the game for many decades, but for expensive, big, complicated jobs, you're always going to be doing something different. You're always going to be with a different team. You're going to be navigating different personalities, and you're going to often have to find different strategies to solve the same problems.
Yeah. From
a very minute level to a very sophisticated level, you're always looking to refine your processes and, again, find new solutions to old problems as markets change. COVID was a perfect example. One of the reasons that was very active during the pandemic years, because the skill set that has made me traditionally a good producer is that same one: improvisational thinking, meeting the moment, trying to create new workflows to match the energy that's happening this week, this month, this year. Like even what's going on with tariffs, these are all perfect examples where learning how to pivot and staying small and agile has always been my strength.
I see. And with all the game that you designed so far, is it any particular focus or any sub-genre of the game that you're trying to create?
That's a great question because so many of my favorite designers are guys that make the same game over and over again. Some letter games, although not my favorite, they often are achieving the same sort of goal in different flavored ways.
Yeah.
I'm not like that. I have more of a who's a filmmaker, but there's certain filmmakers that I would, Rob Reiner. Every time Rob Reiner made a movie, it was a different genre. And my brain space needs that too. I want to jump around. I want to do like a miniature combat game. I want to do an abstract. I want to do a kid-friendly card drawer. Right now I'm working on a hidden memory game.
Okay.
So it's just kind of visiting all these spaces I've never had the opportunity to make a game in that lane before.
Okay.
But also exploring them as a designer, not just a player.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's definitely a very different perspective. And with your film and media background, does it influence how you design and also market the games itself?
Marketing, no. Marketing is still a domain that I know the well goes deep, possibly infinitely. But when it comes to marketing is not something that ever touched me in the film and commercial business, unless I was distributing my own films. And even then, a distributor would usually be taking the reins on how the film is marketed.
Yeah.
I had good ideas. We'd take meetings. There'd be suggestions. But at the end of the day, my lanes were usually so full that marketing was never part of my workflow before. Distribution, however, yes. Having face-to-face communications, having the constant human interactions, whether it be in person or on Zoom or friend of a friend sort of conversations, networking, if you will, that is part of the course in the entertainment industry. You're constantly hunting for your own food in the entertainment industry. So I got a very strong understanding of how to be independent. And as an indie publisher, many of those personality and social skills come right through.
I see. Thank you for sharing that. And I think kind of along with the indie publishing, you also have many different challenges. What would you say is some of your biggest hurdles so far building this company?
Well, you probably hear me say it a lot on this interview, but it's marketing. And I'm still trying to figure out not just how to do good marketing, but the right order, how to turn our profit into profit, the ROI on certain investments. And I have a ton of experience working with influencers of all shapes and sizes, from the very biggest, mostly all game facing, the very smallest influencers. And my instincts from the entertainment industry is like, just spend on marketing and it's going to be great. But as an independent publisher, no longer independent producer, nobody's hiring me to make board games at the moment, nor am I seeking out that sort of work. We're just developing everything internally.
Yeah.
And as a result, it could sink our ship if we were to dump a bunch of money in the wrong lane.
Yeah, true.
And that was one of the first hard lessons I learned in crowdfunding, was just because somebody is famous or has 100 million followers for automotive repair doesn't mean they're going to want to buy a board game. Or if you have a board game audience, it doesn't mean they're going to want to buy your shoes. That was a hard lesson early on when I first started, because before I took the helm at Mentha, I was publishing as a side hustle just for fun. I had published 7 games, not self-published necessarily. I didn't self-publish any games, but I brought them to a publisher to be published.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so I either collaborated, mostly I did the design work. I carry that title. It's like, I still have like my first baby right here. This is like Army versus Aliens.
Okay. That's one of the first games.
Yeah, that's one of the few ones I even have my hands on right now. It was a dice chucker for children, and it still tickles me. You can't get it anymore. It's been out of print for a long time, but I still see it at local cons. I still see it at father and son competitions. And at that time, I thought, well, look, I'm making pretty good money with this little game that I did on the side. This easy racket. I can make money in board games. So now here I am, still trying to make good on that promise to myself.
I see. Yeah, I think it's definitely a very different lanes when you're doing self-publishing versus you're selling or like licensing your games to a bigger publisher as well. And you also share some of your experience, like since you have done both, what are some of the pros and cons on either choices?
Well, the cons, maybe it's a one-point conversation for each. The biggest pro-con is the monetary issue. If you sell your game to a publisher, and similarly with the creative issue, for both creative and monetary, if you sell your game to another publisher, if you sell it to another designer, or it's out of your hands entirely, you're going to make a very small fraction of what you would were you to sell it yourself.
Yeah.
But it's a much more hands-off process. You sell it, you let it go. Similarly, if you were to sell it to another publisher, you'd also lose creative control. Most agreements are going to take that away from you. So you might have this amazing Army versus Aliens dice game, but when you sell it to a publisher, and eventually what they're going to create is a cats versus dog game, or maybe they change it. It's
You
only
change it,
them
yeah.
at that point. They own it. They're going to do what they will with it. So both the creative agency is taken from you and the monetary potential is also taken away from you. But and even though it's easy to say, oh, well, the pros is you're going to make all the money from self-publishing your game. You certainly are, but you still have to get there. You still have to build machinery to sell, and you have to start a company, and you have to go through all the hoops of marketing and distribution and manufacturing and publishing. And I love to inspire other game designers, because especially in cons and when I'm interfacing with the public, people, especially the normie public, the non-con, the non-gaming public, you're a game designer, you see the light turn on their eyes. They're really excited to talk to you about it because, of course, they have a game they want to make, right? You never go hang out at a board game night without half the room having a game that they wish they manifest into reality. And I hate to crash their dreams, but at the same time, it's important that they know that it's not a cash grab situation. It's not a get rich quick scheme or some kind of, golden parachute. It takes a ton of work. And work is something I've always embraced. I've always loved taking on hard things. And I guess, too, the con of just selling off your games or selling your designs is actually a pretty easy path. If you put yourself in those spaces and you have a good pitch, you're a natural salesman, let's say, or you just have a nice looking product, you can sell your games. And there's a lot of ways there. That's a whole different talking point, a whole different lane. Whereas when you self-publish, you can make whatever you want. That comes with its own set of parameters. If you're making a game that's unsellable, if you have some abstract game about growing plants that's, using plastic pieces that you can't afford to manufacture, that might be a problem. You might be chasing your passions, but you haven't found your audience, or you may realize that the audience you thought would be there for your game simply isn't.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I would just look at it as like running any other real business. It's a lot of different aspects. Instead of just designing, there's financing, there's accounting, there's logistic, getting the product made, and also make sure the quality control is there. Then you need to market it after you receive it. So there's definitely a lot more steps. Sometimes when people are first jumping into it, they are not expecting all the work they think is on the surface, because they just see people when they are successful, but they don't see the hundreds of hours that's happening behind the scenes to make sure the person get to that point.
Or even the cost of running a business, or the daily grind of running a business, the non-fun parts. I've talked with a lot of folks, a couple of investors in the past that wanted to do board game cafes. And they'd often say, well, hey, listen, you could run the cafe. Maybe I could pitch in, or we could have some version of a kind of cheap labor situation that'll help us cut the cost down. And I know in the back of their minds, they're thinking, this is going to be really fun to run a board game cafe. I'm going to be able to go there and play games, and here, I have a board game collection, Jason, use that. We could start the cafe with that stuff. And I always go back to them and say, listen, if washing dishes and taking orders and dealing with customers and running a kitchen, taking out the trash at the end of the night, if those things aren't exciting to you, you should stay away from running a board game. Dealing with food and customers and humans, and if it's just coffee, that's going to be the front of the house experience that you're going to have to jump through all those hoops before you get to the point of maybe you have plenty of energy on a Tuesday night and you get to play a board game. You got to really kind of love what you do. I happen to love running businesses. Every time I create a film or commercial, we always create an LLC entity, or a lot of times in California, it'd be an S Corp, depending on the goals of the executive interest. Sometimes that's me. And you start a company, you staff it up, you do all the paperwork, you build all of the architecture to run that company, and you create your project. You deliver your project, then you close the company. And I do that for nearly every single project. Traditionally, I've done that for almost every single film or commercial project that I would produce.
That I didn't know. That's very unique to the film industry, I guess. So every single project requires its own business entity?
It is. And that's for a lot of good reasons. Primarily for liability. One of the reasons the LLC tool even exists, and the way it's expressed in the businesses in California, is in case you set something on fire, you crash your stunt bus into the mall. Like crazy things can happen when the road with big productions, big feature films, big commercials. And if you're not protected, you can run afoul and really compromise your product, but your project. And then once a project is sold, ideally sold and distributed, that's a wrap, not just in terms of the physical production, but you finished it in post and you've delivered it to your client, or it has the end goal that you set. Then you close the company down.
Okay.
And you just do that over and over again. Every single time. So I probably opened and closed 50 or 60 companies.
Oh, that's a lot.
Mostly for others. Usually when I open a company, it seems so wasteful. But if you have the kind of career where you're going to be hopping around like that, it's the best approach. Because it's a no strings attached approach. And then you get to walk away without having to run 30 LLCs. Right? Having to run 5 S.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like. And that's still a practice, even though a lot of facets of the entertainment industry have changed, especially in most recent years.
Mm-hmm.
That's still a very common best practice. I did 2 short films and a feature in 2024, and they all had their own company.
Company.
Yeah, each time. Yeah.
I see. Okay, very, very interesting. So, and I know with your background, you're really good at storytelling with all the film experience. How are you bringing some of the storytelling element into all the different games that you're publishing currently?
This is an important talking point for me because I'm an enabler of other creatives. Even though I do feel that producing can be very, very creative and game design certainly can be very, very creative. Dungeon mastering can all be of creative pursuits. It's different from being a storyteller. So if I hire a writer to write a script and I hire a director to direct the project, I'm not really telling a story. I'm enabling others. I might be bringing that story to life. I may find a script that has a fantastic story and help bring that to life, but I'm not telling the story any more than a book publisher would be in my. That might sound a little bit modest, but I've taken the same mantra to board games. Like for me, I can put a story into a game. Cantankerous Cats is a perfect example. Like look at these amazing cards. I don't have a box to show you. Like there's a lot going on here, right? There's a cute cat. He's coughing something up. There's a human foot about to step on some poop. But at the end of the day, those stories are going to be told by the table, not by me. The way the cards come out, what players decide, the agency they have at the table. For me, it's taking a concept to final and enabling the table and the players that sit there, that magic circle energy to start happening. That's where the stories come from. Similarly, I also push back on this idea that dungeon masters are storytellers. I think the best dungeon masters are not storytellers at all. They're not there writing scripts. They're not trying to get their 3-act structure to execute properly. What you should be doing is you should be collaboratively working with the people at the table to create a shared experience. And that shared experience, in the case of role-playing, should be experiential. They should be experiencing their character in the context of the world. In a board game, you want to evoke that same sort of idea that, you are a cat. You live in a house with your human. Once you have a player wrapped into the theme, a theme can do a lot of heavy lifting in a game. And I think most gamers will have experiences of games that they're aware of aren't very good. But the experience of being in that space is so nourishing, entertaining, inspiring. Now, certainly, I'm not saying any of the games and Mentha designs aren't good. We have a pretty high bar. But at the same time, we understand that our games start and stop at a player's experience, not with some kind of story that they've got to read up on before they begin the game.
Okay. That's a very interesting perspective. And thank you so much for sharing that as well. And the next thing I want to kind of touch on, I know inclusivity is a big theme in the toys and game industry today. How do you apply when you're designing different games for more diverse players, including like people with special needs?
Well, let me cover the special needs beat first. It's something that always comes up. It really depends. The way you approach special needs for us is going to be very different if we're doing an abstract game versus us doing a game with a heavy amount of verisimilitude where it's actual characters and objects in the real world, for example, right? Like Thug Life was a game that I made that was a very literal looking and feeling game. But shapes is something that we always lean to. So the idea, you might have a pile of tea, but for somebody who's colorblind, you might have black tea and green tea and yellow tea, but having diamonds, circles, and squares, that's going to communicate to somebody who has color blindness. And there's other things too, including tactile or using different sizes of cards is something that I love to do. Iconography is something that I'm almost to a fault. I try to create iconography that almost makes this easy access hieroglyphic system where you could learn visually.
Okay.
So, if you have dyslexia or if you have even the color blindness aspect, you could actually, the shapes of the symbols, the positioning of the symbols, the UI, super, super important. And not only for the various types of disabilities that impact board game publication, but also for other gamers. I feel that the visual language of a board game is the most important part, not just for learning and playing, but also for the experiential part. Like I'm working on this cryptid game right now called Cryptopedia.
Okay.
And we're really doubling down on that idea. So at some point, just looking at the card, the hieroglyphics in the front, you're not reading any words. That's our end game goal. We're pretty close to it. So you can intuit how the game functions just by learning a handful of keywords.
Okay.
Take you 30 seconds, a minute, a couple turns to get on board. But once you do, now you've learned visually. You didn't have to you didn't have to watch a YouTube video or read a bunch of complicated rule books. And let's be honest, most publishers and designers, and even a lot of editors are just bad at making rule books. Rule books are a very contentious thing in the board game industry because what makes a good rule book is not usually what you think.
Okay.
And usually it's because you've gotten too close to the project that you can't can't see the forest from the trees at some point. But a lot of that again has to do with how you teach somebody visually. And as long as you're taking your rule book and taking the same approach of teaching visually, I find that to be extremely helpful. Don't cheap out on not showing maps or making sure the components are in the right place in an illustrated example. For certain types of brains, certain types of gamers, they start with a rule book. It took me a while to understand that. Like, why are all these people on Kickstarter asking me for the rules? They're not done yet. I was like, oops.
Yeah.
Have your rules done before you launch a Kickstarter. And it doesn't mean you can't change them. You don't have to be inflexible. But you do need to understand that a lot of people's purchasing decision, especially in crowdfunding, is going to be predicated about what your game looks like. And having that attention to visual accuracy is not just going to help you sell your game or teach your game. It's going to help with a lot of the disabilities that we see in the space.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think some of the rule book I read, it's just too much text. There's not enough illustration, and it's really hard to understand how to play it without some visual cue. Especially for me, I'm more of a visual learner than reading through 10 pages of rule.
And I've been guilty of that too. I've released some rule books I thought were just, ironclad. I was like, oops, that could have been a little bit better.
I see. And since you mentioned about Kickstarter earlier, can you also share your experience with crowdfunding in general? What are some of the strategies that worked for you in the past? What are some of the strategies you suggest our listener to also try?
I mean, it's been a rocky road for me. I mean, I've only had one unsuccessful Kickstarter. I've ran 2 others that were successful, and I've been part of probably another dozen or so that were successful, but I was just a component of, whether I was advising or helping with this component or not. Some Kickstarters, I just provided influencers, or I would help them work on the marketing campaigns. But you absolutely have to understand the marketing component. It's something that I work on almost every day, trying to understand what the ecosystem looks like, trying to stay on top of what the various algorithms and the various social media apps are doing to you at any given time, what things like SEO, kind of diving into that. But more importantly, constantly learning. Never going to stop learning about marketing. If you want to run a board game company successfully, it's the same kind of fundamentals as working the crowdfunding circuit. You have to understand that the ecosystem is a dynamic one. It's like a tide pool. The tide comes in and out, and there's different organisms are in it at different times, and you need to know how to catch all of them. And understanding that it's not enough to just do one thing. It can be daunting. It's certainly been overwhelming to me, especially when I'm running a small team or it's just 1 or 2 of us working on a crowdfunding effort. It can seem daunting. You want friends, get like-minded people that have the time, the interests, and the skill set. It's okay to train people up, but it's much, much better if your marketing person has a marketing degree or experience in marketing. Your graphic designer's done graphic design. Those are really helpful. It's not on the job training, but it's actually, you can get some version of professionals on your team. There was recently an effort. I wish I could recall the group that's doing that, and it would be great to get them to plug them in this. But they drafted all these dungeon tubers. Dungeon tubers are people that make Dungeons and Dragons content on YouTube.
Yeah.
They didn't spend any money on Google Ads. They didn't spend any money on Meta. They spent all their money paying dungeon tubers and giving them a part of the pie. It was a really novel idea. Like, I would like to try something like that. So you give the folks that have the gatekeepers of your audience, ultimately you're making a role-playing game, a fantasy-facing role-playing game. Why not conscript the folks that make a living promoting that sort of lifestyle online already? And they were met with such aplomb. People will welcome them so much into this kind of cooperative sort of thing. It felt a lot like I just mentioned before about the actual role-playing experience, this feedback loop of players and dungeon masters all collaborating. Great to see the community saying yes to a content creator who's trying this new approach by just simply rewarding them. And even if it isn't a large amount of money, even if it isn't like the best opportunity some of these content creators have ever had before, it feels good. It feels right to water your own garden. Is the best way to describe it, to feed the ecosystem that will ultimately be feeding you. I thought that was such an inspiring sort of business model. And darn it, I wish I knew those guys
that did that particular strategy.
Yeah, because I heard it in passing, but I heard several different these guys saying it in passing.
I see. So looking ahead, what excites you the most with your next project for the upcoming years?
So the most exciting to do our first completely scratch build as a team at Mentha Designs, which is a game called Cryptopedia. It's kind of a combination between the card game of concentration, trying to find matching pairs, and Sushi Go, like this light sort of, but rather than a hand drafter, it's a table drafter. So you're looking at secret information, you're then hiding it from others, trying to remember where they went, and eventually you're going to catch cryptids. You're going to research cryptids by exploring strange spaces. So it's cryptid-themed. There's a lot of phony esoterica blended into it. So it's simultaneously got this awesome theme. I love monsters. I just love monsters, guilty as charged. And it almost has this modern ARG aspect to it where we're working towards building mysteries into the game itself. And those mysteries are the mechanics. So some of the fun ones that always make me laugh is it's hard to catch certain creatures or research certain creatures. People ask me how, and I never tell them. When you create a game, when you teach a game, you want people to understand how to operate it, how to engage with it. But I often, very rarely do I want to tell them how to win or how to strategize properly, how to optimize their turn. Because I feel you're taking that away from them, that learning moment, So Cryptopedia is the thing I'm excited about the most for all those reasons, right? It's unique. I've never seen a hybrid game like it. And we have a team of artists that we pulled together from the OSR, which is the old school Renaissance space in role-playing games, that have that old school kind of old school art style where it's black and white, high contrast, almost like Linda cut sort of art style. And we're doing all the classic North American cryptids first. The hope is we do expansions for Fae and yokai and other sorts of batches of monsters that we can explore. But that's the game that I'm interested in the most. Can I tell you about more stuff? Do you want to hear about that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
We're working on a expansion. It's an expandalone, which is basically an expansion for Cantankerous Cats, kind of our runaway hit.
Yeah.
And it's also a standalone game. So you can play it with cats or independently on its own. And it just takes some of the mechanics of cats that our community knows and loves and flips them on their head a little bit with dogs. Our currencies are flipped the way that we do affection. If you're familiar with the game, affection is our currency that you gain by being nice, but then you spend it to do bad things and get away with it. And the dogs have the reversion of that mechanic where the dogs accidentally do derpy things because dog, and then they have to work out trouble they've caused, the things they broke by being kind. So we're, puppy dog eyes and, dog tricks, etc. So that's very exciting. This is probably a crowdfunding launch in 2026 late. We're hoping to Q1, Q2 of next year is what we're still talking about. Still trying to land that. Those are things that are most exciting to me. But on a higher level, it's finding enough success in the space to be able to keep doing this. Especially now with such uncertain economic times, it's very hard to predict a lot of economic factors that might derail some of your plans.
Yeah.
So trying to get ahead of that is the kind of current challenge. And every month there seems to be a new curveball.
Yeah, got it. So as well as wrapping up today's interview, if you had to share one piece of advice with someone that's getting started within the toys or game industry, what would that be?
Make games. Just make them. Don't have anything that's going to stop you from iterating. Like, I can make a better version of the game I just made, and then a better one, and then a better one. Just keep doing that. Make sure that you can iterate quickly and make the game, listen to what others are saying, and just keep making the game. Don't worry about selling it. Don't worry about your crowdfunding effort. Don't worry about quitting your job or changing career, even though those might be driving motives for you. Make the game that you want to play. Make the game that your friends like to play at your table. Because then you at least know you have an audience. And build from there. You might find out that you hate making games. You might find out that you don't ever want to touch crowdfunding or marketing. But if you're a crazy person and you do, you're only going to know by trying. So just, make stuff.
Okay, that's a very good advice. Just take action, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So for our listeners that would love to learn a little bit more about you and your company, where is the best place for people to find you online?
The best place to find us, our company portal, www.menthadesigns.com, is definitely the right place to find us. And we also have Mentha Designs on Instagram. And we're definitely becoming more and more active on Instagram. But and as we continue to ramp up our social, but yeah, MENTHA Designs. You can find us on Instagram and directly on our website.
I see. Okay. We'll make sure we put that in the show note. And thank you so much for your time today, sharing your story and your journey and your wisdom with the rest of our audience.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for the opportunity. It was really fun.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for our listener for tuning in to this episode of Toy Business Unboxed podcast. We hope you have enjoyed today's conversation and find it insightful and inspiring. If you like what you have heard, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. We really appreciate your support and would love it if you can leave us a review and share the podcast with your friend and colleague. For more resource, tips, and the latest update within the toys and game industry, visit our website at toy-launch.com. Join the conversation and connect with us on social media using hashtag ToyBusinessUnboxed. We'd love to hear your feedback and suggestions for future episodes. Until next time, keep innovating, keep creating, keep bringing joys to toys. This is Jason Shea signing off on the Toy Business Unboxed podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much, everyone.